1100 or visit our website at shirazauto.co.za.
All right, now joining us on the line, we have Fahad Nabil, who's an independent researcher focusing on militancy, cybersecurity, privacy, data protection, and UN peacekeeping. He's joining us on the line from Islamabad, Pakistan. Fahad, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Radio Islam International.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for inviting me.
We also have on the line from Istanbul, Tanya Gudsuzian, a Canadian journalist and Afghanistan analyst who has covered Afghanistan for 2 decades and has interviewed politicians across the spectrum, including Ashraf Ghani. Tanya, a very good morning to you. Welcome to Radio Islam International.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Fahad, if we can start with you, tell us more about this group, ISIL-K, Khorasan. Are they a U.S. proxy whose mission is to keep the capital and the country in a state of tension and anarchy?
Basically, this Islamic State Khorasan province came officially into existence in January 2015. It was basically formed from the defection of militants from Pakistani Taliban, Afghan Taliban, some members from Al-Qaeda, and some members from Islamic movement of Uzbekistan. So basically, it was consisting of members who were already battle-hardened and were involved in Afghanistan.
What were they disgruntled about? Why did they leave the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and Taliban Pakistan?
The main key reason because of which they joined the Islamic State Khorasan province was basically they were motivated because of this new organization, because of they claim to establish a so-called Khilafat in Iraq. So this motivated these members to join this new Khorasan province.
What kind of capacity do they have militarily and financially? Are they backed by the US or any of outside parties who have an interest in Afghanistan?
There is no concrete evidence to support this assertion that they have a foreign sponsorship or foreign backing by any nation state. However, they have a very limited capacity because since 2016 onwards, there have been a number of counterterrorism operations launched against them by the US, Afghan forces, and as well as by Afghan Taliban itself.
Tanya, you've interviewed Ashraf Ghani. What do you make of how things unraveled so quickly that even the Taliban was surprised at the rate at which they were able to take control? Did you expect him to run away? Is that in line with his character, abandoning his post, abandoning his people, as he stands accused now?
Well, absolutely. Everybody was taken by surprise, the Taliban and even people among Ashraf Ghani's own close entourage, close advisors were left surprised. What I can say is this: I think there's a lot that we have yet to learn about what transpired in the days and hours running up to Ashraf Ghani leaving the country. In my senses, if you're asking me my sense as a journalist, having met him, having spoken about him to his close advisors, I would say he wasn't the type to be motivated by money. This isn't a guy who is going to take bags of cash and save his own skin and leave the country in ruins. There's something here we don't really know yet. Obviously, he was badly advised. It appears now that he may have been told that the armed men had infiltrated the presidential palace and that they were going room to room looking for him. And of course, you know, in every Afghan leader's mind, that iconic tragic image of President Najibullah is very much etched in their memory. That is not a fate that they want to share. So I think there's still a lot we are going to find out over the months to come on what exactly happened that motivated him to suddenly pick up and leave.
Tanya, are you surprised by the new approach of the Taliban? Very diplomatic, reaching out to the media, reaching out to international role players, changing their policies when it comes to certain aspects of women education and that kind of thing?
This has been going on for some time now. The Taliban quote-unquote charm offensive, their PR campaign, they've definitely upped their game, but this is not new. They've been doing this now for a few years. Since I suppose maybe 2014, 15 or so, we saw them more active on social media. We saw them use Twitter, Facebook as a way, well, not unlike ISIS, as a way to woo more followers and to increasingly win over any elements within the country that were disgruntled with how things were going in Afghanistan. And of course, things were not perfect, and there was a lot to be angry about. But they did change tack compared to the 1990s. They definitely started using media more to their advantage. And in the last 2 years, we did see them kind of join the global conversation, putting pictures out showing Taliban fighters playing cricket, more sort of humanizing kind of image was going out. But I think we need to be careful and hold them to account on what they say versus what they do, because we haven't really seen convincing arguments that they are walking the talk.
Fahad, coming back to you, is ISIL-K now the biggest challenge that the Taliban have in terms of the immediate future? Will the attacks by ISIL-K, as well as the resistance by Shah Massoud's son, ensure that the Taliban continue to remain armed and continue to have rifles strapped to their arms for the short term before they become more political leaders than military leaders?
Yes, with this Kabul airport attack, Islamic State Khorasan province has become the major and immediate threat to Afghan Taliban government, because it is seriously questioning the capability of Afghan Taliban to protect and ensure the safety of Afghan citizens. Ever since the Doha Agreement, Islamic State Khorasan province have been propagating that the Afghan Taliban and United States are partners. So they have been questioning and trying to establish this or delegitimizing Afghan Taliban. So it is emerging as a very serious threat to the credibility of Afghan Taliban, because now they have to move from the insurgency mode to the counter-insurgency mode, where they have to ensure the safety and security of Afghan nationals.
What about Shah Massoud's son and that region, that province? How much of resistance can they continue to keep up?
I think so. They won't be having they do have a limited capacity, and they won't be going beyond that, because they do not have an external support which they enjoyed back in the 90s, or back in the following the 9/11 American invasion in Afghanistan.
Tanya, what's your assessment? What are the main challenges facing the Taliban currently?
The main challenges I would identify is they are definitely keen on achieving legitimacy on the international landscape. They want international recognition. They want to have diplomatic relations with their neighbors as well as other countries. So that's going to be their challenge, is to make sure that they meet the very basic requirements, human rights and civic liberties requirements, that would allow these countries to recognize them. So that's going to be their main challenge on the one hand, but there's also the economic challenge. At the moment, the international community has shown that they do have some leverage to push through those basic human rights requirements by withholding access to international aid funds, international financial markets. So this is something that the Taliban government, once they form one, will have to acknowledge.
So, Tanya, you've been covering Afghanistan for 20 years plus now. Yesterday was the deadline for the U.S. forces to leave. Did you ever foresee a day, within 2 decades, that the Taliban would triumphantly march back into Kabul? We know that Mullah Umar is reported to have told the U.S. back in 2001 that you have watches and we have time, and that we're in this for the long game. But realistically speaking, at the time, or even halfway through, I mean, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, was this on the horizon? Was this likely to happen in this time frame?
Well, there's the benefit of hindsight. Right now, when we look back, we'll definitely see signs that things weren't going to end well. But I think that certainly blunders were made along the way over the last 20 years, not just by the Americans, but by successive Afghan governments. we can't pin everything on Ashraf Ghani and his government. This was several years of governance issues. There was corruption, all of that. But I think that what needs to be underscored here is that things took a turn 2 years ago when the Americans decided suddenly to engage with the Taliban unilaterally, marginalize the government of the Republic of Afghanistan. That was the turning point. I mean, had that not happened, we might not be where we are today. Because I do need to stress this, that the Taliban does not enjoy overwhelming popular support in the country. This was not something, they weren't welcomed with open arms. So the balance was tipped by this sense that they were legitimized, that the Americans were pulling out whatever happens. And there was a loss of morale among the Afghan forces. So there's a whole bunch of factors to consider. So was it an inevitable outcome? I don't think that's the case. And I do believe that over the last 2 years, conditions made it so that this was going to be an outcome.
Finally, then, Fahad, what's your analysis of the short to medium term for Afghanistan? Do you also concur that the Taliban don't enjoy widespread support and that they're likely to have a tough challenge on their hands?
Well, definitely, Afghan Taliban does not enjoy wide support among Afghan people. They do have a varying nature of support in certain areas, but they do not enjoy wide some support. So the immediate short-term issues which they have to face is to ensure a proper governing mechanism or framework. Because if they do now have to realize that they have to shift from the insurgency mode to counter-insurgency mode and governance, where they have to ensure the safety and security of Afghan. And the major threat for now will be the Islamic State Khorasan province.
All right, Fahad and Tanya, we thank you both for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was Fahad Nabil talking to us from Islamabad. Pakistan is an independent research